Good afternoon, Dr. De La Gente and my dear classmates. In behalf of my group, we are going to report strategy, analysis, and choice. My group mates are the following: Aguado, Alonzaga, Andraje, Balyanes, yours truly, Bondoc, Cambronero, and De La Cruz. So, to start our report, we have here the learning objectives, which consist of 11 points. Number one is to describe the strategy, analysis, and choice process, diagram and explain the three-stage strategy formulation analytical framework to diagram and explain the different matrices, which are the SWOT matrix, space matrix, BCG matrix, IE matrix, grand matrix, QSPM, or the quantitative strategic planning matrix, discuss the role of organizational culture in strategic analysis and choice, identify and discuss important political considerations in strategy analysis and choice, and to discuss the role of a board of directors in strategic planning. Now, as for the process of generating and selecting strategies, we have six key points. Number one, strategy analysis and choice seek to determine alternative courses of action that could best enable the firm to achieve its mission and objectives. Number two, strategists never consider all feasible alternatives that could benefit the firm because there are an infinite number of possible actions, an infinite number of ways to implement those actions. So limit your alternatives as much as possible, but do not make it very much limited, just the right amount of number. Next is identifying and evaluating alternative strategies should involve many of the managers and employees who earlier assembled the organizational vision and mission statements, performed the external audit, and conducted the internal audit. Number four is alternative strategies proposed by participants should be considered and discussed in a series of meetings. So number three and number 4 points, this promotes inclusivity, and then of course these people who organized or who formulated this shared vision and mission are the best people to actually formulate strategies for it. Number five is the proposed strategy should be listed in writing or should be documented properly. And last is when all feasible strategies identified by participants are given and understood, the strategy should be ranked in order of attractiveness. Now, it should be decided which is the best of the best. So, these are the stages of the strategy formulation analytical framework. We have the input stage, stage one, matching stage, stage two, decision stage, stage three. And for the matrix set, it will be reported by my group mates. So I will give you an overview of stage one, the input stage. This summarizes the basic input information needed to formulate strategies, and it consists of the following matrices: EFE, IFE, CPM. Stage two focuses on generating feasible alternative strategies by aligning key external and internal factors. Now, these includes the following matrices: the SWOT, SPACE, BCG, IE, and the GRAND strategy. And last but not the least, of course, is the decision stage, which reveals the relative attractiveness of alternative strategies and thus provides objective basis for selecting specific strategies, which involves QSPM. As you can see, for the points that I was able to discuss in here, the process of generating and selecting strategies, it was summarized into three stages, which is the input, matching, and decision stage. As for the next part of our report, let me introduce to you Edgar de la Cruz for the next part. Thank you.
Matching stage. The strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, or the SWOT matrix, help managers develop four types of strategies, which is the SO, strengths, opportunities, strategies; WO, weaknesses, opportunities, strategies; ST, strengths, threats, strategies; WT, weaknesses, threats, strategies. The matching stage. SO strategies. Use a firm's internal strength to take advantage of external opportunities. ST strategies. Use a firm's strengths to avoid or reduce the impact of external threats. WO strategies aim at improving internal weaknesses by taking advantage of external opportunities. WT strategies, defensive tactics directed at reducing internal weakness and avoiding external threats. SWOT matrix. List the firm's key external opportunities. List the firm's key external threats. List the firm's key internal strength. List the firm's key internal weaknesses. Match internal strength with external opportunities and record the resultant SO strategies. Match internal weaknesses with external opportunities and record the resultant WO strategies. Match internal strengths with external threats and record the resultant SP strategies. And lastly, match internal weaknesses with external threats and record the resultant WT strategies.
Space Matrix, Strategic Position in Action Evaluation Matrix. Four quadrants framework indicates whether aggressive, conservative, defensive, or competitive strategies are most appropriate for a given organization. Two internal dimensions are financial position and competitive position. Two external dimensions are stability position and industry position. Most important determinants of an organization's overall strategic position. For the table 6.0, we have examples of factors that make up the space matrix axis for the internal strategic positions. Enumerated are the factors that affect financial position and competitive position. In financial positions, we have return on investment, leverage, liquidity, working capital, cash flow, inventory turnover, earnings per share, price-earnings ratio. In competitive positions, we have market share, product quality, product life cycle, customer loyalty, capacity utilization, technology know-how, control over suppliers and distributors. For the external strategic positions enumerated are also examples of factors that affect stability position and industry positions. In stability positions, we have technological changes, rate of inflation, demand variability, price range of competing products, barriers to entry into market, competitive pressure, ease of exit from market, price elasticity of demand, risk involved in business. In industry positions, we have growth potential, profit potential, financial stability, extent leverage, resource utilization, ease of entry into market, and productivity capacity utilization. Steps to develop a space matrix. 1. Select set of variables to define financial position, competitive position, stability position, and industry position. 2. Assign a numerical value ranging from +1 worst to +7 best to each of the variables that make up the FP and IP dimensions. Assign a numerical value ranging from -1 best to -7 worst to each of the variables that make up the SP and CP dimensions. 3. Compute an average scores for FP, CP, IP, and SP. 4. Plot the average scores for FP, IP, SP, and CP on the appropriate axis. 5. Add the two scores on the x-axis and plot the resultant's point on x. Add the two scores on the y-axis and plot the resultant's point on y. Plot the intersections of the new xy point. 6. Draw a directional vector from the origin of the space matrix through the new intersection point. This vector reveals the type of strategies recommended for the organizations: aggressive, competitive, defensive, or conservative.
So as a continuation of the previous reporter, we have your example of strategy profiles. Under these strategy profiles, we have four: aggressive profiles, conservative profile, competitive profile, and defensive profile. So we have first here aggressive profile. Each profile have two examples, and we have here a first example, which is a financially strong firm that achieve a major competitive advantage in a growing and stable industry. The second aggressive profile example is that we have here a firm whose financial strength is a dominating factor in the industry. Conservative profile here, we have also two examples. First graph indicates that a firm has achieved financial strength in a stable industry that is not growing. The firm has few competitive advantage. The second conservative profile example graph, we have here a firm that suffers from major competitive disadvantage in an industry that is technologically stable but declining in sales. Thirdly, we have here an example of competitive profiles. The first graph indicates that a firm with major competitive advantage in a high growth industry. The second graph to be interpreted says that an organization that is competing fairly well in an stable industry. Lastly, we have few defensive profiles. So we also have two. The first graph indicates that a firm has a very weak competitive position in a negative growth stable country. And secondly, a financially troubled firm in a very unstable industry. Next, you have here a Boston Consulting Group matrix, or BCG matrix. It also called growth sharing matrix. Graphically portrays differences among divisions in terms of relative market share, positions, and industry growth rate. Allows a multi-divisional organization to manage its portfolio of business by examining the relative market share positions and the industry growth rate of each division relative to all other divisions in the organization. So we have here a graph for which the BGC matrix is all about. So we have here a 4-quadrant graph. We have here first the question mark graphs, second the star graph, uh, third quadrant is the cash cows, and the fourth quadrant, which is dogs. So we have here the first quadrant, which is the question mark. Organization must decide whether to strengthen them by pursuing an intensive strategy market, such as market penetration, market development, or product development, or to sell them. Second, which is the stars, it represents the organization's best long-run opportunities for growth and profitability down through retrenchment. Third quadrant, which is cash cows, generate cash in excess of their needs, should be managed to maintain their strong position for as long as possible. Lastly, we have here quadrant 4, which is dogs. Compete in a slow or no market growth industry. Business are often liquidated, divested, or trimmed down to retrenchment. BGC matrix or BCG matrix. The major benefit of the BCG matrix is that it draws attention to the cash flow, investment characteristics, and the needs of an organization, various divisions.
The internal, external, or IE matrix. It is based on two key dimensions, the IFE total weighted scores plotted on the x-axis and the EFE total weighted scores on the y-axis. It has three major regions: grow and build, hold and maintain, and harvest or divest. This positions the organization's division into 9-cell matrix. On the x-axis of the IE matrix, the IFE total weighted scores of 1.0 to 1.99 refers to weak internal position. Scores of 2.0 to 2.99 is considered average. Score of 3.0 to 4.0 is strong. Similarly, on the y-axis, the EFE total weighted scores of 1.0 to 1.99 represents low, 2.0 to 2.99 is medium, and 3.0 to 4.0 is high. Divisions that fall into cell 1, 2, and 4 can be best described as grow and build. Market penetration, market development, product development, and backward, forward, or horizontal integration are the most appropriate strategy for this type of divisions. Second, divisions that fall into 3, 5, and 7 can be managed best as hold and maintain. Market penetration and product development are the common strategies employed by this type of divisions. Third, the common prescription for firms that fall under cell 6, 8, and 9 is harvest or divest. Next is the grand strategy matrix. It is based on two evaluative dimensions, competitive position and market growth. It composed of 4 quadrants. Quadrant 1 are firms with strong competitive position and rapid market growth. For Quadrant 2 are firms with weak competitive position and rapid market growth. For Quadrant 3 are firms with weak competitive position and slow market growth. For Quadrant 4, these are firms with strong competitive position and slow market growth. In Quadrant 1, firms with continued concentration on current markets. Market penetration, market development, and product development is an appropriate strategy. For Quadrant 2, firms are able to compete effectively. So they need to determine why the firm's current position is ineffective and how the company can best change to improve its competitiveness. For Quadrant 3, firms must make some drastic changes quickly to avoid further decline and possible liquidation. Extensive cost and asset reduction or retrenchment should be pursued first. Quadrant 4, firms have characteristically high cash flow levels and limited internal growth, and often can pursue related or unrelated diversification successfully.
The next topic is the Quantitative Strategic Planning Matrix, or QSPM. It objectively indicates which alternative strategies are best and uses input from Stage 1 analysis and matching results from Stage 2 analysis to decide objectively among alternative strategies. The Quantitative Strategic Planning Matrix Here we have to identify the key external factors and the internal factors. Under external factors are economy, political, legal, governmental, social, cultural, demographic, or environmental, technological, and competitive. Under internal factors are management, marketing, finance or accounting, production or operations, research and development, and management information system. There are 6 steps in QSPM. First, make a list of the firm's key external opportunities and threats and internal strengths and weaknesses in the left column. Second, assign weights to each key external and internal factor. Third, examine the stage 2 matching matrices and identify alternative strategies that the organization should consider implementing. Fourth, determine the attractiveness scores. Fifth, compute the total attractiveness scores. And sixth, compute the sum total attractiveness scores. There are 3 positive features of the QSPM. First, set strategies can be examined sequentially or simultaneously. Second, requires strategists to integrate pertinent external and internal factors into the decision process. Third, can be adapted for use by small and large for-profit and non-profit organizations. 2 limitations of quantitative strategic planning metrics. First, always requires informed judgment, and it is only as good as the prerequisite information and matching analysis on which it is based. Here is an example of a QSPM for our retail computer stores. We have here on the left side listed the key factors under opportunities, threats, strengths, and weaknesses. And then we also identified the weights and we examine the stage 2 matching matrices. We have the 2 alternatives here. And then we determine the attractiveness scores, the total attractiveness scores, and then the last step is to sum the total attractiveness scores.
The next topic, the culture and politics of strategy choice. So all organizations have their own culture and successful strategies depends on the degree of consistency with the firm's culture. So strategies that require fewer cultural changes may be more attractive because extensive changes can take considerable time and effort. All organizations are political unless managed, so political maneuvering consumes valuable time, subverts organizational objectives, diverts human energy, and results in the loss of some valuable employees. Political biases and personal preferences get unduly embedded in strategy choice decision. Next, we have the tactics to aid strategies, so choose methods that afford employee commitment, achieve satisfactory results with a popular strategy, shift from specific to general issues, focus on long-term issues and concerns, and involve middle-level managers in decisions. Next, we have the governance issues. So, board of directors, a group of individuals who are elected by ownership of corporations to have oversight and guidance over management and who look out for shareholders' interests. So, in short, a board of directors is essentially a panel of people who are elected to represent shareholders. Next, we have the board of director duties and responsibilities. So, board of director control and oversight over management, adherence to legal prescriptions, consideration of stakeholders' interests, and advancement of stockholders' rights. So, in broad sense, a corporate board of director act as a fiduciary for shareholders. Last topic, we have the principles of good governance. So first, no more than 2 directors are current or former company executives. Second, the audit, compensation, and nominating committees are made up solely for outside directors. Third, each director owns a large equity stake in company, excluding stock option. Fourth, each director attends at least 75% of all meetings. Fifth, the board meets regularly without management, presents and evaluates its own performance annually. Six, the CEO is also the chairperson of the board. And lastly, there are no interlocking directorship where a director or CEO sits on another director's board.